Hello, hello, good morning. Nice to see many familiar faces and new faces. And so this weekend we're going to be looking at meditation. Last week we had a course on how to meditate, and that was more sort of introductory. And mainly we focused on placement meditation, which is the meditation we do to cultivate shamatha, or calm abiding, single-pointed concentration. And so this weekend we're going to focus on the other main type of meditation, which is called analytical meditation or thinking meditation. And this is the kind of meditation that we use to understand and gain deeper experience of the Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment. So, I wrote recently, we published a book called How to Meditate on the Stages of the Path. Just came out in November, but I spent about 5 years working on it. And so it goes through the stages of the path, the Lamrim, and has different meditations from that. So we can't possibly go through this whole book in 2 days. In fact, we only have one and a half days because tomorrow afternoon there's a Guru Puja. So we just have today, this morning, this afternoon, and then tomorrow morning. So I'll just kind of give an overview of the Lamrim, what the Lamrim is all about, and the different levels of the Lamrim. And we'll do some meditations. We'll have some guided meditations on Lamrim topics, just a selection of Lamrim topics to help you gain more understanding and experience of those. But first of all, we'll start by reciting prayers, which will be up on the screen, and then we'll take a few more minutes to generate a really positive, altruistic motivation for being here. So this is particularly important given the topic that we're looking at. The Lamrim is all about how to develop our potential for enlightenment. We have the potential to be enlightened, to attain the same state that the Buddha attained. So that potential exists within us, and it just needs to be developed, although it's not easy. It does take time and energy, but we can work on developing our potential for enlightenment and bringing our mind to that state of enlightenment. And that's what the Lamrim is all about. It's showing us how to do that. And the whole purpose, the whole reason for doing this work on transforming our mind and bringing our mind to enlightenment is so that we can benefit other beings. That's the only correct motivation that we can have, is altruism, wanting to help others, to be free of suffering, and to have peace and happiness. And so it takes time to cultivate that state of mind, that motivation, but we can at least work on that, and slowly, little by little, it becomes more and more our genuine and natural way of thinking and being. So we'll do that. Okay, so while reciting the prayers, it's good if you can to visualize the Buddha in front of you. So in the space in front of you, at about the level of your forehead and about 2 meters away, is the Buddha, made of light, not like a metal statue, but just made of pure, transparent light, kind of like a rainbow. When we see a rainbow in the sky, it's not something solid that we can touch or hang on to, but it's just an appearance, but bright and radiant and beautiful. So try to imagine the Buddha like that. Three-dimensional, not flat like a tanka, and not something solid like a statue, but just made of radiant, transparent light, very beautiful, very inspiring. And his body is of golden light, and he's wearing the robes of a monk, saffron robes. His legs are in the full lotus position, and his right hand is resting on his right knee with the palm against his knee, the fingers pointing down and touching the seat beneath him. And his left hand is in his lap with a palm facing upwards, holding a bowl, an alms bowl, the kind of bowls monks use to collect their daily meal. And this bowl is filled with nectar, which is like medicine to heal our suffering and causes of suffering. And the Buddha's face is very peaceful, with a smiling expression, but also looking very calm and subdued, not all excited, but because his mind is totally free of all disturbing thoughts and emotions. So his face is peaceful, and his eyes are partially open, and you can imagine him looking at you and also at all other living beings with an expression showing his unconditional love and compassion. So in the Buddha's mind, there's no anger or hatred or criticalness, judgmentalness, nothing but pure unconditional love and compassion for every single living being, not excluding anyone. So it's similar to the way a mother or father feels about their children. They have just pure love and are totally dedicated to taking care of their children, helping them get whatever they need to be happy, and protecting them from all problems. So the Buddha's mind is like that. He's completely dedicated to helping us be free of suffering, problems, and helping us achieve happiness, all the way up to the highest happiness of enlightenment. So it may be difficult to actually visualize the Buddha and all the features, all the different details of the visualization. So don't worry about that. Just do the best you can, even if you just have some vague image, a rough kind of outline of what the Buddha looks like. The important thing is to feel that the Buddha is there. Really try to feel you're in the presence of the Buddha. Because actually it's said that Buddha and many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are always present with us. They're always in front of us and around us, looking at us with compassion and love and ready to help us whenever we need help. So they're actually there all the time, even though we don't see them. So try to feel that way. Try to feel the Buddha really is there in front of you with all his excellent qualities, his love and compassion, his wisdom, and his commitment to helping you develop your potential for enlightenment. So now let's recite the prayers, starting with refuge and bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Then next is the prayer of the four measurables, which elaborates on that last part of the prayer we just said of wanting to become enlightened to help all living beings. So with this prayer of the four measurables, we generate love, wishing all beings to be happy, compassion, wishing them to be free of suffering, joy, wishing them to have perfect happiness, free of suffering, and equanimity, wishing ourselves and everyone else to be free of the biased state of mind that discriminates, likes some, doesn't like others, and so on. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then to become enlightened, we need to do a number of things, like learning about and meditating on the Lamrim. But we also need to complement that practice with the accumulation of merit, positive energy, and the purification of our negative energy, like our negative karma and our afflictions and so on. So the next prayer, the seven-limb prayer, contains the most important practices for doing those two things, accumulating merit and purifying negative energy. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. Next is the mandala offering. This is imagining the whole universe, all the beautiful, precious things in this world and other worlds, and offering these things to the Buddha, to the three jewels, wishing that all living we imagine it as a pure land, and then we wish all living beings to be able to enjoy the pure land. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Nidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Okay, so we'll do the other prayers at the end to dedicate the merit. So let's take a few minutes to do the best we can to generate a positive, altruistic motivation as our reason for being here. So first, make sure you're sitting comfortably. It's good if you can keep your back straight because that helps the mind to be more concentrated and clear. But other than your back being straight, the other parts of your body should be relaxed, not tight or tense. So imagine if there is any tension anywhere in your body, it melts and then flows out of you and sinks down into the earth below and disappears there. And then let's settle the mind in the present, the here and now. So there may be thoughts in your mind left over from things you did earlier today. So put those aside, let go of them. And also do the same with any thoughts about what you're going to do later today. So let go of thoughts of the past and the future. And just let your mind, your awareness be right here, right now, in the present moment and present place. And watching your breath, being aware of your breath coming in and going out is a good way to settle the mind down, because our breath is happening right here, right now, and not some other time or place. So when we're paying attention to the breath coming in and going out, naturally our mind is in the present. So when we're observing our breathing like this, our mind is in a kind of neutral state. not virtuous, not non-virtuous. And it's best when we listen to the Dharma or practice meditation to have a virtuous state of mind, a virtuous motivation. And the best motivation we can have is what we call bodhicitta, the aspiration to become enlightened, to help all living beings. So I think many of you are familiar with that state of mind and know how to generate it. So just take a few moments to generate that state of mind. And if you're not familiar with bodhicitta and how to generate it, a simple thing you could do would be to just think to yourself, may what I'm doing here this morning, may this session of teaching and practice be beneficial to all people and all beings everywhere, to the world. Okay, so we'll do some more meditation later. First, I'd like to talk a little bit. So I thought there might be some people here who are not familiar with the Lamrim, and so I'll just start with some words of explanation about it, what it's all about. So Lamrim is a Tibetan term, and Lam means path, and Rim has the sense of like stages or gradual. So we usually translate it as stages of the path. And the path here refers to the path to awakening or enlightenment, Buddhahood. So basically the Lamrim is, I like to think of it as like a road map. Like now, I guess everybody has GPS, so you just turn that on, it will tell you where to go. But in the past, we had maps, yeah? We had to look at a map to find out how to get from where we are to our destination. And also, I think before GPS, there was Google Maps, yeah? So you could Google and say where you want to go, and then it will tell you kind of a step-by-step series of directions. First you go here, then you go there, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So the Lamrim is a bit like that. It's a map, a road map for how to get enlightened, how to get from where we are at this point in time, meaning we're not enlightened. I hope I hope that's clear to everybody that we're not enlightened. So Buddhism says we have the ability to reach enlightenment. We have the potential to be enlightened. That's what's called Buddha nature. So Buddha nature refers to something that's already within us, already part of us, part of our being, and that can be transformed into the state of enlightenment. So we have that potential. In fact, everybody, every sentient being has that potential. So even people who are doing really terrible things, you know, they have a lot of hatred and anger and violence, and they're doing really harmful things to others. So even they have Buddha nature. It's just kind of buried under a lot of other things, but it's there. And it's something that can't be destroyed. It can't be kind of lost or destroyed or even damaged. Yeah, so it's no matter what we do, our Buddha nature will never be destroyed, will never be damaged. It's always there. It's just waiting for us to kind of realize we have that potential and then start doing what we need to do to awaken it, develop it, and bring ourselves to the state of Buddhahood. So that's a really beautiful teaching in Buddhism. I know for myself, when I first started learning Buddhism, that was something that really sparked my interest, my enthusiasm to learn Buddhism and practice Buddhism. The fact that every living being has the potential to change themselves, to transform themselves, emerge from a state of confusion and suffering and delusion, and reach this wonderful, magnificent state of enlightenment, like perfection. And so the Lamrim consists of a lot of different topics that we need to engage in with a threefold process. They talk about 3 steps that we use to engage in the Lamrim. First is listening. So listening can mean, like going to teachings where you hear a teacher who has themselves studied the Lamrim, has a good understanding of the Lamrim, meditated on it, so they're able to teach and explain these different topics. And this step can also include studying on your own, because there's books you can read, and nowadays lots of other sources of information, like online. There's so many things, whole courses that you can do online and increase your knowledge, your understanding. But anyway, this first step involves acquiring the knowledge about the Lamrim, the topics of the Lamrim. So we have to first gain that knowledge, that understanding. And the second step is thinking or reflecting. And this is thinking about what we hear so that we understand it better. As you may have heard, when the Buddha was teaching, he encouraged people to not just blindly believe everything he said. He didn't want that. He didn't want blind faith. But he wanted people to investigate his teachings. In fact, he said we should do this with any teachings, any spiritual teachings. We should investigate them and check if they're true or not. And so, the second step of thinking involves that. We think about the teachings that we've heard, that we've read, and go over them in our mind. And it's also helpful to discuss with others. If you have friends who are also studying the Lamrim, then it's good to discuss with them. That is a really good way of increasing our knowledge and our understanding, because we don't necessarily think about everything ourselves, right? We might think about certain things, certain questions, but not every possible question. But when we have a few people or a group of people who are studying together, then some people will think of things that we never thought of ourselves. And it's like, oh, I never thought about that. So it can really help to broaden our knowledge and our understanding beyond just what our own mind is able to come up with. So the process of thinking and reflecting, is like that. To deepen and broaden our understanding and come to a good understanding. Because that's another thing that can happen too. When we're listening to teachings or reading books, there may be things we don't understand. Certain points are mentioned there and we think, what does that mean? And the book can't talk to us and tell us the answer. So we can either ask teachers or ask our friends or do research, Google. Omniscient Google. Google knows it. Oh, now there's artificial intelligence, right? So it's not always correct. You can't rely on it 100%, but it does have a lot of information, and kind of just like that, it gives you an answer. So there's lots of resources we can turn to help us, answer our questions and understand things better. So with this second step, then, we have a deeper understanding of the topics. And then the third step is meditating, and that's the real purpose of the Lamrim. It isn't meant just for intellectual knowledge, so that we can go blah, 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 and tell people about the Lamrim. The real purpose is to bring it into our mind and bring about a transformation of our mind, transforming our normal ways of thinking and feeling and relating to things, so that we have more positive, virtuous, beneficial ways of thinking, things that are ways of thinking that are in accordance with the Dharma and that will help us progress on the path to enlightenment. So that requires meditation. And it's specifically or mainly analytical meditation, thinking meditation, which we'll be doing in this weekend. Okay, and then people sometimes like to know where a tradition comes from, how it developed. So just a little bit of explanation about that. Oh, what's wrong? Huh? Oh, do you not have those slides? Yeah, I made some slides for this. Did Serene send you? Okay, never mind. It's not so important. So the Lamrim was a tradition that developed in Tibet, but the first person to develop this tradition was Atisha. Atisha was a master from India, and he lived in 10th century or 11th century. Great Indian master. So he had spent his entire life studying and practicing Buddha's teachings, so he was a great master of sutra and tantra. Okay, there we go. Oh, no? Not that one. Not yet. Huh? Oh, you don't have it? Okay. Okay, never mind. So Atisha was this great Indian master, and at that time, Buddhism came into Tibet around 7th, 8th, 9th centuries, around that time. And around the time of Atisha, there was some confusion. Different people had different ideas about how to practice Buddhism. And some of these ideas were kind of not really correct, not really accurate. And the king, one of the kings in Tibet, was concerned about this situation. He wanted to, clear it up. So he thought, if we bring in a great Indian master who's really knowledgeable about all the different aspects of Buddhism, then that person will be able to help us to establish a correct and pure form of Buddhism. So they invited Atisha, and by the time he came to Tibet, I think he was already in his 60s, and that's quite amazing, the fact that he traveled overland from India over the highest mountains in the world, the Himalayan mountains, and went into Tibet, and spent the last 17 years of his life in Tibet. And so seeing the situation in Tibet and the different ideas that people had and some of the confusion that they had, he composed this text, which is called The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. Bodhipata Pratipa, I think is the Sanskrit term. So that was the very first Lamrim text. And what he did was, he took the most important points of the Buddha's teachings about how to get from where we are now as unenlightened beings all the way to the state of Buddhahood, enlightenment. And he arranged them in a kind of step-by-step way. This is what you need to do first, and then this, and this, and this, and this, and that. So that's the basic idea. Hey, we got it. Okay. And but that text is actually quite short, and it doesn't go into details. There are English translations available if you want to read that. But then after Atisha, then this tradition of the path to enlightenment, the Lamrim, continued, and various texts were written by Tibetan masters, and probably the longest, most complete Lamrim text was written by Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of our tradition, the Gelug tradition, and it's called the Lamrim Chenmo, which means the great treatise on the stages of the path. That text is available in English, I think also in Chinese, yeah? And in English, the English version has 3 volumes, so it's quite lengthy and detailed. Lama Tsongkhapa also wrote other Lamrim texts, like a middle-length one and a short one. So anyway, there's a number of different texts by Lama Tsongkhapa as well as other masters over the centuries on this this type of teaching called Lamrim. And many of these were translated into English. And I'm sure here in Amitabha Buddhist Center, the Lamrim has been taught by Geshe Chunyi, right? Geshe Chunyi has taught the Lamrim. And maybe some of you have gone to Kopan Monastery in Nepal, where every year in November, there's a 1-month Lamrim retreat, where there's teachings on the Lamrim, plus guided meditations, discussions. So that's a really good way to get an understanding of the Lamrim. And yeah. But because the Lamrim is actually quite vast and contains many different topics, and each of the topics has a lot of details and needs to be understood and also meditated on, not just once or twice, but again and again and again. So we need to keep, listening to, reading, thinking about, and meditating on the topics of the Lamrim, and not think, oh, I know that, I already learned that, I already did that, now what's next? I want to do something else. So ideally, it's something we could spend our entire life working on. to really get an understanding of the Lamrim, and also have a deep understanding such that it changes our mind and it changes our way of living our life, our way of being. So, like I say, there's a lot of different topics in the Lamrim that we need to learn and think about and meditate on. But these topics are divided into 3 different groups, 3 different sections, which are called, sometimes they're called 3 levels, or also 3 scopes. So you can go to the next slide. So the first of these 3 scopes is called the initial level, also known as the small scope. So this is where we need to begin. And in the general idea of this level of the Lamrim is developing concern about the future, and not just the future of this present life, but our future lives after this life ends. So my guess is most people in the world are just totally occupied with this present life, with our, taking care of our body and our family and our home, our job, our career, and so on. So this life takes up most of our time and energy, and my guess is most people don't give a lot of thought to what happens next after this life. In fact, probably most people don't even want to think about that. We have a lot of resistance to thinking that, oh, this life is going to come to an end. Yeah, I'm going to die, and this life will end, and then what happens? Yeah? That's very scary, right? It's frightening to think that this life is going to end. We have a lot of resistance and aversion to thinking that way. And that's not true for everybody. I mean, there are people who do think about this life coming to an end and wonder what happens after that. But even if we do think that way, it's hard to be sure. It's hard to get that question answered because there's different opinions, right? There's different views, different ideas about what happens after we die. And nowadays with, science and people who have learned science or educated in science, probably most of them believe nothing happens. Yeah, it's a very common view that when a person dies, everything ceases. Yeah, the body dies, the brain dies, and there's nothing that continues after death. So this is, I think, a term for that is a materialistic view. Yeah, that all we are is this body and our organs, including our brain, and all our thoughts and experiences happen in our brain. And when this body dies and our brain dies, that's it. There's nothing left of ourself as a person. And so a lot of people believe that. Death means total non-existence, going out of existence altogether. But as far as I know, all religions have a view that there is something that continues. Some people call it a soul, right? Or an Atman, that's the term in Indian religions. So they say that when a person dies, the body dies, yeah, and that's left behind to be buried or cremated or whatever. But there is some part of the person that continues to exist. And probably most religions talk about a soul. In Buddhism, we don't use that term, soul, but we do say there is something that continues, and we say that it's our mind, our consciousness, our awareness. that part of us that thinks and feels and knows things, understands things. So our awareness, our consciousness, our mind. So we use those different terms for that part of us that's there all the time. I mean, it's there 24 hours a day. Our mind is always present, always experiencing something, even when we're asleep, even when we're fast asleep. Our mind doesn't really stop. It keeps going and having experiences, like dreams. But even when we're not dreaming, even in a state of dreamless sleep, or in a coma, when somebody's in a coma, we say that the mind is still there. It's still having experiences, maybe very deep, very subtle experiences, but it's there. It never shuts down. It never stops. It's going 24/7, every minute, every second. So that part of us, what we call in Buddhism mind or consciousness or awareness, that is something that continues to exist after our body dies. Death is like a separation, like a divorce. Mind and body. While we're alive, our mind and our body are together, working together, interacting, and depending on each other. But when death happens, there's a separation. The body is left behind, becomes a corpse, a dead body to be disposed of. But the mind, the consciousness, doesn't die, continues to exist. And it's something, the nature of the mind is that it's not physical. It's not a physical phenomena. So it's not made of any particles, like molecules and atoms and so on, that can be detected with scientific instruments. So they haven't found any instrument that can detect the presence of the mind and what's going on in the mind. They can look at the brain and look at the activity in the brain, but the brain is not the mind. The mind is something non-material, non-physical. It's not any part of our body. And so that's why a lot of scientists don't believe in mind, because they can't see it, right? They can't detect it with their instruments. But meditators, of course, and just ordinary people can know, but I do have a mind. I can see my mind. I can experience my mind. Right now my mind is thinking this, or it's remembering that, or it's feeling this. So just by looking inside, we can see our mind and what our mind is doing, what's going on in our mind. So in Buddhism, mind is extremely important. There's a lot of information about the mind and different types of mind, different aspects of the mind. It isn't just one thing, but it's very complex and it's always changing. And it's our mind that will continue to exist after our body dies and take another life, a rebirth after this one. And it's also our mind that progresses on the spiritual path and eventually attains enlightenment, or Buddhahood, or nirvana, these higher states of mind that Buddha discovered and others have attained as well. And when we practice meditation, it's mainly about the mind. We're using our mind to understand our mind and transform our mind. So that's just a little bit about the Buddhist view of what happens when we die. We don't go out of existence totally. It's just the point at which our mind leaves our body, separates from our body, and then if we haven't yet reached enlightenment, which is the case for most of us, then it will take another life, another rebirth. So in Buddhism, there's that view of rebirth or reincarnation. So generally, this first part of the Lamrim, the initial level, is developing a concern about our future life, you know? And the way we do that, there's a number of different topics to meditate on. One is impermanence and death, where we contemplate how, our body and all the things around us, all our possessions and so on, and other people, all of these things are impermanent, meaning they are subject to change. They're changing all the time, every minute, every second. That's a scientific reality. You don't have to have religious belief, religious faith to accept that. It's just the true nature of things, that they are changing. And as things are changing, especially in terms of our body, they're getting older. Our body is getting older, not younger. Every day, every minute, every second, our body is getting older. And as we get older, we're getting closer and closer to the end of our life. Death is inevitable. Death is something that can't be avoided. We're all going to face it one day. And yes, it's unpleasant. It can be frightening to think about that. But that's only because we don't understand death, and also we don't know how to deal with it, how to manage it. But there are things we can do to prepare ourselves for death so that when it does happen, it won't be a bad experience, a frightening experience. It can even be like a very peaceful experience. It all depends on your mind and how much you have developed your mind, especially your practice of Dharma. So someone who has spent a lot of time learning and practicing the Dharma, when death happens, they're not afraid, they're not upset, and they may even be happy because they understand that death is a time where they can do certain practices that will increase their positive qualities, their compassion, their love, their wisdom. And it's even possible for certain very highly skilled practitioners, it's even possible to attain enlightenment at the time of death. I mean, that's rare, but it's not impossible. It can be done. So people who've really trained in those practices, it said they even look forward to death because that will give them a chance to do those practices and attain enlightenment. So death doesn't have to be so scary. It all depends on how we've prepared ourselves. But the point of thinking or meditating on impermanence and death is just to realize this life is going to come to an end, and it's not the complete end, like an annihilation of our existence, but it's more like death is like a gateway to another life. Right? After death, we will have another life, another rebirth. And it's important to prepare ourselves for death. That's another really important point of that meditation, is to realize the need to prepare ourselves for death. A lot of people don't do that. They just go through life almost like they're never going to die, just totally focused on this life and all the things they have to do, and they never give any time to thinking about this life coming to an end and how can I prepare for that. So a lot of people come to the end of their life really unprepared, having made no preparations at all. And for people like that, death is probably quite a difficult experience. They probably have a lot of fear that they've never dealt with. They don't know how to manage this experience of dying, and so it's quite likely they will die in a disturbed state of mind, not a peaceful state of mind. On the other hand, someone who has thought about death and prepared themselves for death, when death happens, then they can be without fear and even in a very positive state of mind. They see death as the opportunity to engage in a lot of practice, spiritual practice, Dharma practice. And so it all depends on how prepared we are, what kind of death we have. Depends on how we live our life, basically. The way we die depends on how we live our life. So if we live our life with spiritual practice, living a good life, a virtuous life, doing as much good as we can, helping others, cultivating spiritual practice, then at the time of death we'll have those thoughts and experiences in our mind. So this is an important lesson to learn from this contemplation on impermanence and death, the need to prepare ourselves for death. And then another meditation in this section is looking at the different possibilities for what happens after death, the different places where rebirth could take place. And in Buddhism, we say there's different realms that we could be born into. 3 of them are unfortunate realms, and they are being born as an animal, being born as a hungry ghost, preta, or being born as in hell. So I think here in Singapore, people are very much aware of hell. You have Hapar Villa. And yeah, it's just part of Chinese culture, and also hungry ghosts. You have the Hungry Ghost Month every year. Although I think some of the popular ideas about hell and about the hungry ghosts are not correct. They're not accurate according to Buddhism. But I think, it's easy to understand that those are bad places. We don't want to go. We don't want to be born in those places because they're really unfortunate and miserable and suffering. And then there's the animal realm. So we know animals because we have them in our world all around us. And that's also considered an unfortunate rebirth. They have a lot of suffering and deprivation. Even, people have pets that they love very much and they take good care of. So those pets sometimes have better lives than some human beings, right? There are people in the world who are starving, and then there's these well-fed cats and dogs and lying around all day, pampered. And but even animals like that, physically they're comfortable, they're well off. But in terms of their mind, they don't have the ability to develop their minds. They have Buddha nature, according to Buddhism. They have Buddha nature too. They have the ability to become enlightened. But with that mind of an animal, it's not possible to develop that potential. They're not able to understand the teachings. I remember when I lived in Singapore, and I love cats, and if I found little kittens, stray cats in the road, I would bring them home and take care of them. So I had a lot of cats when I was here, and I would always try to tell them not to kill. Some of them were real killers. As soon as they saw a bird or a lizard, they were just like, and I would try to say, no, don't kill. They want to live just like you do. They don't want to die. They don't want to be killed. No way they can understand that. So it's just very unfortunate because they have this strong instinct to kill. I mean, not all animals do, but some do, especially cats. And they just follow that instinct, and they just can't understand a teaching on karma and what's good karma, what's bad karma. So they say this is the real tragedy of the animal rebirth, that they're not able to understand the Dharma. And so, so we look at these 3 unfortunate realms and imagine what it would be like if we were born in them. And the purpose of that is to develop this strong determination not to go to those realms, that it would be really, not only would there be a lot of suffering in most of them, but there would be no way to practice the Dharma and develop our potential for enlightenment. Even to create virtue is almost impossible. And so it's just like a waste of time being born in those realms, a waste of time. And also, most probably, creating bad karma, right? If you're born as that kind of animal, like a cat or other carnivorous animals, then you're just creating bad karma all the time, killing other beings, fighting with others, and so on. So not only do you not have the opportunity to create virtue and improve yourself in terms of the path to enlightenment, but you're creating more non-virtue, more bad karma, which is just going to keep you in a suffering state. So we need to look at the disadvantages of those three unfortunate states of being so that we develop the strong determination not to go there, not to have such a rebirth in our next life. Okay, so then how to do that? So then that's the second main point or second main part of the initial scope is looking at the actual methods to avoid unfortunate rebirths and get good rebirths, fortunate rebirths, like a human life, or in the Deva realms, celestial realms. So here, as a human being or as a Deva, you have less suffering and more opportunity to engage in spiritual practice and work for enlightenment. So how to do that? So first is to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the topic of refuge, this is a big topic. It includes like looking at the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, those three objects, and what are their qualities, why are they worthy objects to take refuge in or rely upon. So that takes time to learn about and think about and understand, but it's said that refuge, that attitude of refuge, that itself will protect us from an unfortunate rebirth. So if at the time of death, when we're dying, if we can remember Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or even just one of the objects of refuge, even just Buddha or Dharma or Sangha, like one of our spiritual teachers, even to remember just one of the three jewels of refuge with an attitude of faith, devotion, reliance, then that state of mind is a very virtuous state of mind. And if we can have that state of mind as we're dying, then it's like the doors to the lower realms are closed. we won't have one of those rebirths, and we'll have a good rebirth instead, as a human or as a Deva. So yeah, refuge is what will protect us from an unfortunate rebirth in our next life. But we also need to do more than that. We need to learn about karma and live our life in accordance with karma, because the experiences that we have, both now and also in the future, are the result of our karma, the karmic actions that we do. So karma basically means action. And the idea is when we do an action, every action we do leaves an imprint on our mind, a kind of seed on our mind that will be the cause for experiences that we will have in the future, later on. And basically we talk about good karma and bad karma. Good karma is virtuous karma. It's done with a positive state of mind, and it's something positive, like giving, helping people when they need help, living ethically, practicing patience, having faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, making offerings to them, paying respects to them, and so on. So those are some examples of virtuous actions, virtuous karma, good karma. So when we do any of those actions, the imprints or seeds left on our mind are the cause for good experiences, happy experiences in the future, including good rebirths, being born in a good situation, in a fortunate situation, rather than in an unfortunate one. So we need to learn what kind of actions are good, virtuous, so that we create those as much as we can. We also need to learn what kind of actions are non-virtuous, bad karma. Those are the cause of bad experiences, such as going to an unfortunate rebirth or having other kinds of problems, even if we're born as a human being. So even in a human life, we can still encounter bad things. We all know that. We get sick, we get injured, people treat us badly, we experience misfortune. So all the painful, unwanted things that happen to us in our life are the result of bad karma, negative karma that we created in past lives. So we need to learn what constitutes bad karma, negative actions, so that we can really try to avoid those and refrain from those. So Buddha taught the 10 non-virtuous actions: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, idle talk, and then covetousness, malice, and wrong views. So those 10 actions that we do with our body, speech, and mind, the Buddha said, try to avoid those. Try to live your life and stopping those actions, because those are the main causes of suffering in future lives. So karma is a really big topic, very complex, very detailed, but very, very important, because that shows us, if we don't want suffering, we don't want to go to bad rebirths in our future lives, and we want good rebirths, we want good experiences, it really depends on our karma. Okay? We are the creators of our karma. Nobody else creates those experiences for us. We are the ones. So sometimes people don't understand that. They think that by praying to Buddha, saying, Buddha, please give me happiness, please give me wealth, please find a good husband for my daughter, and so on and so forth. Let me choose the right lottery ticket, so on. So some people have that idea that praying to someone like the Buddha or God or whoever, then that is the way to get happiness, to get the things we want. And to stop suffering. Please, Buddha, don't let me die, don't let me get sick, don't. It's not up to Buddha or anybody else what experiences we have. It's up to our karma. We are responsible. We are the ones who create the causes of the experiences that we have. And so whether we have happiness and good experiences or we have suffering and bad experiences, it's in our hands. We are the ones responsible. And that is what's explained in the teachings on karma. So that's really important to know about karma. So there's a lot of different topics and meditations included in this initial scope. And I thought that maybe it would be nice to do a meditation on refuge, on the 3 jewels of refuge. So that's what we're going to do next. Now, we've been sitting for an hour now, and you might be feeling a little uncomfortable. And if that's the case, if you want to just take a few minutes to stand and stretch your legs, change your position if you need to, so that you can be comfortable during the meditation. Is this for Chok? Tomorrow, oh, okay. Guacheng. Is there like a bell or a gong or those little thingies that can... Well, it's something. Seems like for such a huge hall, we should have a bigger bell. But it's better than nothing. No, I was going to use it to indicate the end of the meditation when we finish. But okay, so let's start the meditation. So when doing a Lamrim meditation, it's recommended that you don't just kind of plop yourself down and then immediately start meditating, but you do some preparatory practices. That's usually explained in the Lamrim text, like you clean your place where you're meditating, your meditation room, and set up an altar with offerings. So somebody's already done that for us. That's very convenient. And then you sit down and you do some prayers. But we already did that at the beginning of our session today. Visualizing the Buddha, taking refuge, and generating a good motivation. So we did those. Oh, yeah, that's maybe louder. Let's see. Oh, that's a nice sound. Can everyone hear that? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so since we did that at the beginning of our session this morning, we don't need to do those again. But since we're going to be doing a meditation on the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, then it's good if you can remember the visualization of the Buddha. So I'll remind you of that, and then I'll guide you in the meditation to contemplate the qualities of the Buddha. And the purpose of this is to generate a feeling of admiration, respect, faith, devotion, so that we feel that Buddha is someone I can rely on, someone reliable, trustworthy, and the Buddha is someone I can turn to for help, for whatever I need help with, especially when our life ends and we don't know where we're going next, what's going to happen to us next. It's kind of natural at that time to feel like we want to turn to somebody for help. So if we've already developed that feeling of trust in the Buddha, then it will be easy to bring the Buddha to mind and rely on the Buddha, take refuge in the Buddha. And like I say, if we can do that, we can have that state of mind of refuge as we're dying, then that will protect us from going to an unfortunate life in our next rebirth. But of course, during our life as well, when we face difficulties, problems, challenges, it's also good to think of the Buddha, take refuge in the Buddha, rely on the Buddha to help us, guide us out of this difficult situation. Okay, so make yourselves comfortable in a conducive position for meditation. That means keeping your back straight. And if you're sitting on the floor, have your legs crossed in whatever way is most comfortable for you. You don't have to move too much. Change your position. If you're sitting in a chair, have your feet flat on the floor. And you can have your eyes closed if that works better for you, but it's recommended that we keep the eyes open a little bit and look down on our lap or the floor in front of us. That will help us to stay more awake and alert during meditation, not fall asleep. And once again, let your mind settle down in the present, right here, right now, and not be thinking about the past, the future, other places, and so on. Put all those thoughts aside so that you can just focus your attention on the meditation. And remember the motivation we generated at the beginning, wanting to be of benefit to other people and other beings, to the world, and feel the wish that this meditation that we're doing will be beneficial, both for ourselves and for others and for the world. And recall the visualization of the Buddha that we generated earlier. So the Buddha hasn't gone away, but maybe we have stopped thinking about him. So remember that we visualize the Buddha in front of us, made of light, They're beautiful, radiant, bright, pure. And try to have the feeling that the Buddha really is there in front of you, kind of helping you, supporting you, inspiring you during your meditation. So let's contemplate some of the qualities of a Buddha to understand why a Buddha is someone we can take refuge in and rely on. So a Buddha is someone who has freed themselves from everything negative. That includes all the delusions like greed, hatred, ignorance, and negative karma, suffering. So Buddha is completely beyond all of those, free from all of those. And then on top of that, a Buddha has fully developed and perfected all positive qualities, all good qualities. So let's think about some of those good qualities. So they're usually explained in 4 groups, 4 categories. First, qualities of the body. So the Buddha has many excellent qualities of the body. One of these is the ability to manifest in different forms. The Buddha isn't confined to just one body that exists only in one place at a time, but a Buddha can manifest many, many different bodies that can go to different places and help different sentient beings all at the same time. So they might appear as Buddhas, enlightened beings, but they could also appear in human form or in animal form or even inanimate objects like a tree or a work of art or an appearance in a dream. They can appear in people's dreams. And these different manifestations arise just to benefit other beings. Buddha is constantly thinking about sentient beings and wanting to benefit them. And when they realize that a particular being could be benefited by a particular manifestation, then that manifestation just appears and is there, present for that being in order to help them to follow the path. So think about that aspect of the Buddha's ability to help us and see if that can inspire you to understand Buddha as someone you can rely on. Then the second type of quality that a Buddha has is with their speech, qualities of speech. And it said that a Buddha is able to communicate with all different kinds of beings in whatever language they understand without having to study those languages. So Buddha doesn't have to learn Russian, French, and different languages. The Buddha just knows how to speak those languages and can communicate with people in whatever language they know. And that includes not just people, but also other kinds of beings, like animals. Buddha is able to speak and be understood by any kind of being in their own respective language. And the things that the Buddha talks about are always meaningful and beneficial, never like nonsense or harmful in any way. So they're always motivated to help sentient beings' minds to understand the truth and understand what's beneficial, what's virtuous, so that they follow that. So Buddha's speech is always meaningful and beneficial. And then there are qualities of the Buddha's mind. So there's many, many mental qualities the Buddha has, but it said there are three main ones. The first is knowledge. And a Buddha's mind is omniscient, meaning they see everything that exists. Every phenomena that exists in the universe is an object of the Buddha's mind, and the Buddha's mind is able to see all those things at the same time, in every moment. So the Buddha can see all the beings and all their thoughts and experiences, all the things they're doing, all the things that are going on. And the Buddha understands all of these things correctly, not in any distorted way. So he understands the true nature of all these things. So this is hard to understand, but just think about it and think about how this makes the Buddha really able to help every living being because of being able to see what they are experiencing, what they are thinking, what kind of karma they have, and so on. And the second quality of the Buddha's mind is compassion, which is understanding the suffering that everyone is experiencing and being moved to help relieve that suffering. So Buddha is, again, constantly aware of every living being, and he can also see all the suffering, all the problems that we experience, and he's totally concerned about our suffering and totally dedicated to doing whatever can be done to free us from our suffering. So the Buddha's compassion and love for every sentient being is similar to the way a mother or father feels about their little child. They just have nothing but love and compassion and are completely dedicated to doing whatever they can to help their child. The Buddha feels that way towards every being, including ourselves, each and every one of us, and every other being in the universe. Then the third quality of the Buddha's mind is power or ability. And this means a Buddha has no obstruction to acting in ways that are compassionate and skillful to be able to help sentient beings. So he's like a really skilled, wise benefactor, always wanting to help sentient beings, but also knowing a lot of different ways in which to help sentient beings according to their personality, their knowledge, their experience. He's very, very skillful in knowing how to help each sentient being according to their different needs. And then the fourth quality of the Buddha is their enlightened activities. So this means that a Buddha is always engaged in helping sentient beings, never just sitting around doing nothing, but constantly, day and night, looking out for sentient beings and acting in ways that will benefit them. And their actions are always motivated by compassion and love, and always accompanied by wisdom, understanding the true nature of things and understanding what will be beneficial for each being. And the main activity they do is teaching the Dharma, because that is what will enable sentient beings to become free of suffering and to attain their potential of enlightenment. So the Buddha is always looking for ways to help guide sentient beings in the Dharma, following the path leading to liberation and enlightenment. So after contemplating these qualities of the Buddha, see if that has an effect on your mind, your feelings about the Buddha. Do you feel more confident, more inspired to rely on the Buddha as your guide? Or maybe you have some doubt. It's quite normal to have doubt about some of these qualities that the Buddha has. It's difficult to know for sure if the Buddha really does have them or not. And that's okay. It's okay to have doubt and continue investigating, thinking, studying, learning, trying to clear up your doubts. But try not to let the doubts interfere with any positive feelings that you may have, any sense of confidence that the Buddha is someone who has good qualities and someone you can rely on. And if you do have a feeling, a sense of feeling inspired and confident in the Buddha, then see if you can hold on to that feeling. Keep your mind focused, concentrated on that feeling as long as you can, even if it's just for a few seconds. Sorry if that was too sharp. Okay, so you can slowly open your eyes, come out of the meditation. So when we're doing a Lamrim meditation, ideally it's best if you know the points to meditate on, so that you can just close your eyes and go through those points. Until then, you can have something written, notes or an outline. Either you compose yourself or you can get from a book. But then you have to keep opening your eyes and closing your eyes to do the meditation. But what we're trying to do in a Lamrim meditation is to arrive at an experience of certainty about the topic, like with this particular meditation, to reach a point where we feel, oh, Buddha has all these excellent qualities, and he's someone I can rely on, someone I can trust, someone I can turn to for help. So we're trying to generate that state of mind in doing this meditation. And it may not happen, Yeah, it really depends on a lot of different factors, how well you're able to concentrate, how well you understand these different points, and so on. But that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to that experience of, oh yeah, I can really rely on the Buddha. I can take refuge in the Buddha. So it's a feeling of faith, a feeling of trust. Not blind faith, just emotional faith without any reasoning behind it, but faith that relies on understanding. Like we understand, yeah, the Buddha has this and that and has all these good qualities, and that's what I need. That's what will be of benefit to me. So that may not happen the first time you do the meditation. In fact, you may need to do the meditation a number of times before you reach that point. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to that point. And then if you do get such an experience, if you do get that feeling, oh yeah, Buddha's, I really can admire the Buddha. I can rely on the Buddha. I want to take refuge in the Buddha. So if you do have that experience arising, then it's said it's best to concentrate on that experience. Like you stop thinking, you stop analyzing, you just hold that experience. Try to keep it in your mind as long as possible, even if it's just a few seconds, but longer the better. So in that way, what we're actually doing is we're switching from analytical meditation to stabilizing meditation, concentration meditation, concentrating on that feeling or that experience that you reached in your meditation. And that's how we familiarize our mind with this experience, because the meaning of meditation, the word for meditation in Tibetan is gom, and that means to familiarize, to make our mind familiar with something. So like in this meditation, we're trying to familiarize our mind with the Buddha as an excellent being and someone reliable, someone we can rely on. We're trying to generate that feeling and then make our mind familiar with it so that it becomes more and more our natural way of thinking and feeling. Yeah, like a habitual way of thinking and feeling. So we use the analytical part of the meditation, the thinking part of the meditation, to generate that experience, and then we hold that experience. We concentrate on the experience as long as we can, and in that way our mind gets really familiar with it. If we keep doing that again and again and again, it just becomes our natural way of being, like our default mode. Yeah, and then was, whenever we think of the Buddha, we see an image of the Buddha, that feeling will come up. Oh, Buddha, that's the person I can rely on, I can trust. Does that make sense, what I'm explaining? Yeah, it's a little difficult to do this, but with more time, more experience, then it starts to get easier. We have a little bit of time left before this session ends. If anyone would like to ask a question.
Can I ask whether the part of the mind that goes to the next rebirth, about the consciousness that go to the next rebirth, the word consciousness, is it the same as the 5 aggregate consciousness?
Is it the same as the 5th aggregate?
The 5 aggregate consciousness.
Well, I don't think so, because the 5th aggregate, as I understand it, as I've learned it, the 5th aggregate includes 6 different kinds of consciousness. We have 6 consciousnesses. The first 5 are related to our senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and then body, tactile consciousness. And those 5 consciousnesses, they're often called the sense consciousnesses. So those depend on the body. right? To have visual consciousness, we need the eye. To have hearing consciousness, we need the ear, and so on. So those 5 are dependent on the body. They arise from our body. And the 6th consciousness is the mental consciousness, which doesn't directly rely on the body. That includes our thoughts, our memories, our dreams, our emotions, and so on. So like just now when we were meditating, we were doing that meditation, we were using our mental consciousness, okay? Our mental consciousness. So the mental consciousness, sometimes it can rely on sometimes it depends on the body. For example, we see an object and later we remember it in our mental consciousness. So that memory of seeing something was dependent on that initial experience of seeing. So it depended on the body, the eye, to be able to see, and then we can remember it afterwards. But a lot of our mental consciousness doesn't depend on our body, it doesn't depend on our 5 senses. So it's able to exist independent of that. So anyway, what part of the mind leaves this body and goes to the next life and takes rebirth is the mental consciousness, mainly the mental consciousness. So there's a lot of discussion about this. I think different Buddhist teachers, different traditions have different explanations. Even in Tibetan Buddhism, there's different explanations about that. But I think they would all agree that it's some part of the mental consciousness that leaves the body and goes to the next, and not the 5 sense consciousnesses, because they depend on the body. So once our body dies, they stop existing, and it's just the mental consciousness, or a part of the mental consciousness, usually a subtler part of the mental consciousness that goes from this life to the next. But there's, that's a really good question, and there is a lot of discussion and different opinions about that, different views about that, yeah. Anyone else? You have another one? Okay, that's fine.
Just now, you talked about Atisha, the person who wrote about lamb to the path of enlightenment.
Yeah.
Is he the same person that that investigate his guru for 12 years in Sumatra, which is Indonesia?
Right. Yeah. So Atisha was originally from India. I think the part of India that's apparently now Bangladesh, so the eastern part of India. But he spent a lot of time in India studying with different teachers, and then he generated this strong wish to develop bodhicitta. And he heard about this Lama in Sumatra. His name was Lama Serlingpa. He heard that he had a reputation for having really strong bodhicitta, and so he made a sea journey to go from India to Sumatra, and he stayed for 12 years with that teacher, and apparently he had great devotion to that teacher, even though he had many other teachers in his life. But whenever talking about Lama Serlingpa, he would have tears in his eyes. I think probably because that Lama really helped him to generate bodhicitta. And then later when Atisha went to Tibet, he taught a lot about bodhicitta and taking the bodhisattva vows and so on. So he really emphasized bodhicitta. And also thought transformation, lojong, which is also connected to bodhicitta. No questions. Okay. So this afternoon, like I say, we can't cover the whole Lamrim, but I thought to talk about the next section of the Lamrim, the intermediate level, and do a meditation related to that. And then if we have time, we'll start moving on to the third level, the great level. And that's all about the development of bodhicitta and practicing the 6 perfections. So when I was working on this book, that was my favorite part. I was so happy, composing the meditations related to bodhicitta and the 6 perfections, especially the perfection of wisdom. So I would like to do more meditations from that section, and so we might have time to do that later in the afternoon and also tomorrow morning. It's just so beautiful, so inspiring. And also our teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that was something that he emphasized again and again and again, cultivating love and compassion and bodhicitta, and then using our life as much as we can to practice those qualities, develop those qualities. Okay, so I guess we can stop there and have a little bit early break, and then we'll meet again at 2 o'clock. So yeah, let's, if you could put the prayers back, we'll just do the dedication prayers. So by coming together with a good motivation and spending this time looking at the Lamrim and doing some meditation on the Lamrim, so we've definitely created merit, positive energy, and that's virtue. It's the cause of happiness and the cause of spiritual growth. So the best thing we can do with that merit is share it with others. That doesn't mean we don't have it anymore. We give it all away. We have it too. And we're actually increasing our merit when we share it with others. And it also increases our compassion and our love and our bodhicitta. So it's really a good way to expand our merit and make our merit as beneficial as possible for ourselves and others. So that's what we'll do by reciting these verses. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay, thank you.